you may have an amazing policy and a insurance adjuster that's brand new. So I like to tell people your claim is as good as your adjuster.
All right, we're live today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to my Purpose Driven Investor podcast. And today I have my friend Curtis Eaton with me today. Hi, Curtis.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm so glad you decided to come. This is a podcast, in case you didn't know, it's called Purpose Driven Investment. And so I specifically target people who will come and bring value to our audience, especially their business is serve some sort of meaningful purpose to the public. So when I first met with you, I know last time we were having fancy sushi in Arizona, and you told me about your main business being an insurance adjuster. So I was like, I never heard about this kind of term. My understanding of the insurance just basically, well, depends on what asset I hold. I'm just going to contact insurance company and get a quote and just pay for it. So I am so glad today you decided to come on to talk about being an insurance adjuster. What does that even mean? Why this is such a great and empowering, also meaningful career for you to decide to take on this role. So thank you and welcome to my podcast today.
Thank you. Glad to be here supporting you and you supporting me in this endeavor. It's wonderful.
Well, before we dive right in, I wanted to kind of paint a little picture to tell our audience how you started. Because you're not an insurance agent when you first started, right? You have a construction background.
Right. That's actually what led me to where I'm at. I started in the construction field when I was 11 years old. My dad had a construction company. I enjoyed riding with him. I would get little snacks and things. And during the summer, I would just ride along. Soon enough, I was working. I'm one of 8 kids, and most of us are entrepreneurs, grew up in the country, and we worked hard. So the value of working hard, whether I liked it or not, I was taught the value of hard work. Definitely served me today and where I'm at and where I'm looking to go. Construction was never my real passion. Some really cool things that I learned along the way of how to work with your hands, how to take something where you visualize it and then you build it. It's very satisfying to be able to do that. Was not my passion. As a true visionary, even as a child, I had so many different ideas as to what I wanted to do, from becoming a doctor. People thought I should be a meteorologist. Sometimes people still refer to me as a meteorologist because of some of my hobbies and things outside of work. I would look at weather a lot, and fishing
Really?
and hunting and things like that, tend to revolve around the weather. And so that took my interest to weather. So now it's very interesting now that I have some other passions. I'm learning, for example, in business, a lot about AI, not because I'm so interested in AI, but I see the power that
Saving your
it
time.
holds. A guru that can sit next to me and tell me some really cool things as an advisor.
I think that's so interesting because a lot of us grow up, we have parents. Usually, the first trait that we learn is usually start with working hard. That's a very important trait, being an entrepreneur. And then you realize that working hard gets you to a certain point. It's harder to scale, and you start moving into how can I use my skill, or most importantly, use my knowledge to start making money. And I remember you showed me a picture of you working like, construction job, like installing roof in the summer. It's so hot, it's so sweaty. And that showed me that wow, that's your family business. That's how you were taught by your dad. At some point you decide to step away. What changed that make you decide, you know what, this is not for me, this is not my passion. I need to move on.
As I was learning construction, because I have an entrepreneurial spirit, I also decided, hey, I want to start something on my own. I did, had some success, had a lot of failures along the way. As a construction owner, I moved from North Carolina down to Louisiana post Katrina and was working down there. And I found out very quickly people had different types of worth ethics or lack thereof. And I almost went under. It was a tough learning experience.
Were you down there
But
trying to flip a lot of hurricane damaged home? Is that what brought you down there?
I was actually just down there pursuing work. I needed work. I had went through back surgery. It's a long story. Like I said,
Mm.
I've had a lot of experience. And so I needed to transition from actually doing the work to being more of a business owner. So as I transitioned down there, what happened? It was a hailstorm. I was at this point where I decided, hey, I'm going to look for something else. I was cruising and browsing through Craigslist, and I found a company, a roofing company, that says, hey, come work with us. We'll pay you commission on selling roofs. Well, I love people and I love providing value
Right.
to people. I'd never done it. And the guy said, for every roof that you sell, you'll probably make around $1,000. I said, sign me up. So I did. I think in 6 weeks, I signed 60 contracts.
Oh, wow. Knock on door and go find the customer. Is that what you did?
Yes.
Ooh, that's
Yes.
some grind.
Just like you have chosen to believe in yourself, right? We are all taught that way, right? Believe in your skill set, believe in yourself. I believe in God, but I'm just saying, like, we need to be able to push ourselves out there and do some hard things. So during this time, I learned about insurance. And as I was handling some of these claims for homeowners, just working alongside of them, just as a roofing contractor, I learned a lot. And I kept running into people and they said, hey, you should be an insurance adjuster. And I'm like, cool, tell me more. And it was like they didn't want to say, because back then it was fairly lucrative for the time. And yeah, so that's led me to signing up as an independent adjuster. And I could deep dive this in so many different ways. But then from that, I became a public adjuster. So an independent adjuster is still working as an independent. So you can work for all the big names, all the ones that you would know, maybe even wearing their red shirt and khakis, but you're not actually being paid by them. It's like overflow, right? It's almost like if you understand nursing and people
Mm-hmm.
being travel nurses because they need extra help in particular hospitals. This
Right.
is similar. So a hailstorm happening in your area, and now all of a sudden, instead of having 100 claims a week that we're dealing with, now we have 1,000. And so the adjusters can't handle that flow of claims. And so
So
they
the
hire,
floater. Yeah, so like a
right?
temporary hire help, like a floating. So when you talk about healthcare, like that's like speaking my language. I work in a hospital for, I would say 7+ year, kind of step away. Now I'm a pharmacist. That's my trade. And I work with a lot of nurse and doctor together. So help me understand the public adjuster versus independent adjuster. What are the main differences? Is it licensing or just because the area?
Yeah, so you're going to have a lot of the base knowledge. The knowledge is going to be hopefully similar as far as what a policy is. It's a contract, and that contract stipulates how the claims are supposed to be run, right? So if I'm working for a carrier, a particular carrier, I have to abide by their rules and regulations. However, there's challenges associated with that because we are taught to do two things. One is to indemnify the policyholder. That means to make whole. There's a difference between doing a patch job and just leaving it because that takes care of your whole, a physical whole, a tree hits your house, or actually making somebody whole based upon what the policy's definitions. So when an insurance company wants to resist that, makes it hard as an independent adjuster because you're still working technically for them. And they're the ones paying you in a roundabout way through another company. It was becoming more and more challenging.
So it's more like a conflict of interest in a way that you're being paid by the company who hire you to go adjusting the claims.
Right. And we're supposed to be not a interested party in the claim, right?
Right.
So now you have another level. You have really three different types of adjusters. You have a staff adjuster. If you think of somebody that you've seen on TV introducing themselves or talking about insurance, that is going to be your staff adjuster. They are paid salary. So what is their real purpose for showing up when you've had a catastrophe at your home? Hopefully
Yeah.
will do the right thing, but many times we've seen that they've had improper training. Maybe their background is not construction. Maybe they're a retired school teacher, and God bless school teachers. But
Right.
when it comes to knowledge of construction, when a tree hits your house, you want someone that is very knowledgeable with property. If you hit an animal, God forbid, on the road, you want someone that's very knowledgeable about your vehicle and what it's going to take to restore that. That led me to become a public adjuster. Now, a
So
public adjuster,
everybody can hire you, a
right.
sense.
So policyholders can hire me. And the easiest way to explain it, I really work as a quasi attorney. I'm not an attorney, but that's sort of a representation of how we work. It's a very niche business.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But this is great because you're a neutral party. You're not being hired by the insurance agent. You're not coming in as a employee that just punch
Mhm.
in the clock and move on to the next case. You're actually being hired by the homeowner to represent their interests.
Right.
Wow.
So there's two beautiful words. The first one I gave to you already is indemnification. To indemnify means to make whole. These two words are what policies revolve around. The other word is righteous, for to do the righteous thing. And so it makes it easy when you're looking at something. What is the correct thing to do in this situation? Is there a quicker fix? Is there a workaround? Sure, we could do that, but is that the correct thing based upon the policy language? And so there's a lot of things that we have to do to make make sure that we are doing our best to encapsulate that in words and then be able to present things on behalf of homeowners the way that we see them or call them. We call them the insureds. They're the ones holding the policy. I think the beautiful thing about understanding that also dictates my decisions in real estate. It changes a lot of things. Location of property. I'm not wanting to buy properties along the coast, the East Coast, because of hurricanes. Deductibles are huge. A lot of those policies require additional things and they're very, very expensive. Why? Because we understand the risk factor for the insurance company is going to be really high. That's a little bit of an overarching view as to how I became a public adjuster. I saw people in the past being taken advantage of
Right.
unknowingly many times.
They wouldn't know. They don't
They
like,
wouldn't know.
if you
You
tell
know,
me like what's being covered in your coverage is that I don't know. I just call the helpline, 1-800-HELP, and then based on the back of the policy card, or they usually have a service line. You call them and say, hey, like you said, like tree fell down, damaged my roof. All right, pay, how much can you cover and stuff like that. I would not ask anything further, but I can see this is such a valuable business, especially for people, their house are severely damaged or swept away by the hurricane, stuff like that. Insurance is going to try to pay as little as possible. And I think you came in to help them to make sure they get paid, make whole as much as you
right.
can.
Again, I don't want to suggest that they want to pay as little as possible. We hope that they would choose to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to align with the insured's, the policyholder's interest in the policy and do our best to interpret what we see as damage, defined in, its own particular way, and then be able to present that to the carrier. And we had a situation several years ago where we did have impact and policyholder, the insured, received around $5,000 in coverage. And we were hired to represent them in this situation. We ended up settling that claim. The value on the claim went up to $119,000.
What? From 5,000 to 119. What was the damage?
A
That's
tree
such
hit
a
the house.
huge difference. So I
Right.
guess, like you said, you used the same analogy. So I guess initially they were just gonna pay $5,000 to patch the hole.
I'm not suggesting that that's all
Yeah.
that they were going to pay. Yeah, there was a lot of
Wow.
things, and I could show you some photos and sort of guide you through that process as I began to investigate it and see we don't just have a small hole here. Actually, this window is broken. The brick on the exterior of the house were cracked. In
Structural
addition,
damage.
right, structural damage, some of the doors were not functioning well. Thus, the house was shifting. And
Oh
so
man, that's when your construction knowledge became so invaluable. Most of the homeowner wouldn't know. They just, well, the roof is leaking out, just fix the roof. Can you share some story that a homeowner doesn't really know what to do and they just don't know what to look out for? And how did they find you? Through word of mouth? Where did you get your client?
some of them have been word of mouth, but others find our website and call in and start asking questions. A sad case, in my opinion, because I also love to invest. And since this is an investment podcast, I just want to mention to those of you out there that have investment properties, have had some sad situations with investors that own multiple properties, 20, 30, 50 plus properties.
Right.
They play golf with their agent. Their agent has not updated their policy really for the last 5 or 10 years. Now, cost of repairs have skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years ago, what you could get for 20,000 now is 50 to 70,000, and their policies do not cover the damages. And that to me is a travesty. Now,
Right.
sometimes unknowingly, you will have investors choose policies that they're like, man, I don't really need this. And come to find out, they're like, oh, I didn't know it meant that. I've told people in the past, where you've heard X amount of minutes could save you 10 or 15% on your insurance. Yeah, but the same thing may apply if you don't get the right policy. That 10 or 15 minutes that you thought was saving you on the front cost you over $15,000.
It sounds like we really need a very experienced insurance agent to kind of explain the fine line between, is that worth to pay for that, and what are the consequences not getting that particular rider or additional coverage. Wow.
Yeah, sometimes we hear the word endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a really positive thing. Not necessarily.
What do you mean?
So be aware. You said rider. Some
Mhm.
people don't understand that verbiage. An endorsement, depending on what state you're in, they may add an endorsement that says, in the event of a hurricane, you went from having $1,000 deductible, now it's $25,000 deductible.
Whoa, so they can change the deductible
Happens all the
all the
time.
time. So is that an add-on? Because in the beginning, you usually buy a policy, tell you what's the coverage and what's your deductible, what's your annual premium. That's all I pay attention to. Where is this endorsement? Is it like a fine print certain section in the policy?
You'll see it on your declarations page a lot of
Uh,
times. It'll say form number ABC 123, and then but you really need to look at those and see what it's actually saying. It may be a positive thing, and for a typical homeowner that is not an investor, you're gonna have a base homeowners policy is what we call a HO3 homeowners policy. HO3 is gonna a standard HO3 policy is pretty decent.
mhm.
Now, if they ask you a question, "Hey, what's more important to you? The amount that you would get from particular situation?" Let's say you have a lot of jewelry. Say that's
Right.
an endorsement or a rider. "What's important to you?" And if you say, "Well, low deductible," so they do that. They'll find you a low deductible, but that doesn't
Uh-huh.
mean you're sacrificing something really, really large over here.
So I know your company's called the Premier Public Adjusting. That's when you focus on taking on client, the insurance adjuster to represent them, right? Do you also
Right.
write policy for the client?
That's considered a conflict of interest, right? I'm not
Mhm.
allowed to sell insurance, and thus,
Mhm.
inside, some of our communities that we're a part of, it's really wise for us to be able to have conversations with people that are unbiased.
Right.
If I was thinking about a particular medication, I would ask you because of your background, you may say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I'm not sure if I would do that."
Right.
It's the same thing.
Is
So
it?
that if you're looking at a property to purchase, I may bring up some questions. And then if
Mhm.
you need good insurance, I can refer you to people. I
Mhm.
don't make any money from that.
Right.
But I know what a good policy looks like. So, but the
That's the
good
that's the
policy,
key.
well, yes and no. You may have an amazing policy and a insurance adjuster that's brand new. So I like to tell people your claim is as good as your adjuster.
So when you are being represented by the homeowner, right? I assume company will also send their adjuster. Does it become the communication then become you versus them and communicate back and forth, and then homeowner can just a little bit more laid back because trust this expert.
Right. Yeah, we typically have conversations with the insureds and the homeowners. We just tell them, "Hey, if you have questions, just feel free to ask us."
Okay. And then I know for every business, you will also have to make profit. So will your profit coming from the final proceed payout from the insurance so that it doesn't need to cost additional from the homeowner, or is that additional fund that they have to pay on the
Right.
side?
So we get paid based on the value of the claim.
Gotcha. Well, I know you just recently brought in two more partner as well. You're expanding your business. Business is doing really well. And I know you're also an investor. There's certain market that you try to shy away from because like you said, hurricane, coastline. Is anything else that most people need to pay attention to, like to try to avoid certain area just because the insurance went skyrocketed?
That's a really good question because right now, if you were to look in the news and you Googled insurance company concerns, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, there are some things that are coming to light from some of the carriers, very unethical things that they had been doing. I'm not saying other people have not been unethical, but I'm just using this as an example. As far as areas to avoid, I'm just thinking, what risk factor are you willing to have? What are you looking for? What is your desired outcome? And there are ways to bolster really, if you're coming in looking for a new policy, you may want to consider there's so many things to consider. I know it's an older home. And
Right.
so some insurance companies are going to charge you a higher premium because the roof is over 10 years old or
Right.
whatever it is, right? So there's so many different nuanced things based upon carrier specificity. I wouldn't say necessarily avoid areas. However, there's so much change that's happened over the 10 years. You really need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. Liability insurance, in the event you're an investor and you have a property, you need to make sure that you're postured properly to protect yourself
Right.
from liability lawsuits or whatever it is. It can go so many different ways. Insurance is a huge business.
Right, it's a huge business. Let's talk about your partner. How'd you find them and what's next for you? Because you're running a flying business, right? And you're trying to expand. What's your vision?
Well, there's a larger vision at stake. I see this as homeowners, families, children,
Mhm.
elderly, if we're talking about the insurance world, needing assistance, at least having somebody on their side when they're facing very difficult things. House fires, very, very challenging. As an 8-year-old child, we lost our house to a fire about a month after Christmas. And so those are things that motivate me as well to bring value. As far as expansion, you were just asking about a partner. So presently we have public adjusting firm. We do some real real estate. We have some here in North Carolina, presently West Virginia and Kansas, looking to expand to the southeast. So that will primarily focus on several things, being able to allow families the dignity of choice to be able to choose owning a home versus renting a home. And so we like to position properties in a way that, yes, of course, we have to make money, but it
Right.
gives people the opportunity. Maybe they have bad credit to be able to afford a home. Cost of housing is skyrocketing nationwide, and there's issues there. And so we're also wanting to take a property or build new, actually looking at new builds right now for a co-living when or unable to afford a home, but to still give them a space that's not a hotel or an apartment and create healthy living environments for those individuals. I just partnered. There's been a journey over 6 months it took me
Mm.
to really find that person. Well, it wasn't just that person that came with this. It was two. I had an epiphany. I was wrestling back and forth and wrestling back and forth. And so I woke up on a Friday and I called the one gentleman and said, "How would you feel?" Because we're in the same community together. How
Right.
would you feel about working together? And he
Mhm.
said, "Let's do it." And then I called the lady as well and just said, "Hey, how do you feel?" And she said, "I'm in." So last week we flew to Texas and met for about 4 days, and we finalized a working relationship partnership. And one of the businesses that is also being focused on is a asset surplus funds asset recovery business. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that business, but if someone is foreclosed upon,
Right.
what has to happen is they're forced out of their home, right?
They
Well,
have to file a claim to get what's theirs. It's not an
correct.
easy process. A lot of time people walk away. So I'm familiar with the surplus. So that's a really good business as well because not just helping homeowner, you also help get them what they deserve. A lot of people kind of walk away, just give up, but it's a process that you can hold their hand to get a check that they deserve.
So yeah, really excited about that. And then eventually, because of my background in construction, really looking to purchase businesses, service businesses that I would consider are AI resistant. I'm not saying that AI won't eventually come in and take over, but for example, a plumbing company, it's going to be hard for a robot until it's trained well to go in and fix a toilet issue. And then
Right.
really to help business owners really give them the dignity of choice. Do they want to sell it? Do they just want to walk away? As well as preserve their legacy by really holding on to their values and build that out for them. I mean, you think about a widow who's 75 years old and she just lost her husband. He was the breadwinner for the family and they're great financially, but now what's she going to do with the business? And be able to structure something to create a win-win situation for those folks. It's bigger than that because then you have employees that will still need work. Those employees may also need a place to live. And so it becomes a ecosystem by which, communities can be self-sustaining and really bolster the impact that they can make. If this is home, let's keep it home. And I just see a lot of beauty in that. And it's because of my purpose behind all of this as well, is to be able to provide value to these individuals while still growing large companies.
Well, I love your value proposition investor. So not just about the money, you're always looking to provide value to people. And I think that's why I brought them back and then, continue bringing more and more business through word of mouth. So I think this is great for us to wrap it up, but I wanted to make sure people know how to find you, right? So your company is called Premier Public Adjusting. The website will going to include bottom the link so people can reach out to you if they have any insurance issue, especially after a disaster, hurricane, wildfire. They need to reach out to you to hire you as on their corner to help them out through the process. Your team can help them. What would be the best way to reach out to you? I know you're still getting your social media up, right?
Right. It's still going to be the easiest either through my website or websites. I can give you the links to those as well as my Instagram. It's at the Curtis Eaton. Just reach out, shoot me a message. I'll be happy to pop on a phone call with you, recognizing I am busy, but I want to do my best to bring value to the community and
Right.
help those folks that just have some questions and be able to point them in the right direction.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Curtis, for you to come
Always a
up
pleasure.
today and share this mysterious career I never heard about as an insurance adjuster. There was so much value that you can bring to the homeowner and help them navigate through this claim insurance claim process. I think that's wonderful that what you're doing. So
Well, I
thank you for
appreciate the
coming
kind
up.
words.